Good evening and welcome to this episode of Beef Tips and Gravy. I'm John Houston, Director of Business Services for ProTrition Feed. We're glad you're joining us for this episode. I'm happy to introduce our guest this evening, which is Mr. Todd Conway. Todd, welcome. Todd represents our ProLix liquid feed line. It's been very successful in our trade territory, Todd, and we're thankful that you've joined us here today. And just ask a few questions about liquid feed. First of all, we talk about liquid feed. In general, just tell our audience a little bit, what are we referring to when we talk about liquid feed?
In our case, the brand name everybody's familiar with in this area is ProLix, and I was actually doing a little bit of research before this, and we're starting in with 30 years of working with the co-op with the ProLix brand. And it's a little misconception there that we call it ProLix liquid feed, but it's actually a supplement. And so it's designed to work with forages. And it's a very familiar brand name in the Southeast because it was actually founded and started in Alabama over 60 years ago.
So folks that are not used to feeding liquid feed or really know the mechanism and how it is delivered to the animal. Talk to us a little bit about, the tanks and how cows actually get this product.
Right. Yeah, they do require a special feeder, and we call them lick tanks in most cases, but they have wheels on them. They're enclosed, and the cattle will be able to lick the wheels. Most of them we use in this area are 2 wheels, so that they'll do up to 50 head. And part of the reason we do that is to help limit consumption and make sure cattle get the right amount.
And the tanks will hold gallon-wise roughly?
Gallon-wise about 300 gallon, which is about 1.5 tons.
Right. So tell us a little bit then about the products available in the ProLix line. I know there's different proteins, and then I'll follow that up with a question about that protein makeup with a little MPN question. Right. Follow that up.
It's most of the co-ops in this area carry a 35% protein. We do offer a 32% protein. They're all designed to be fed to a cross-section of cattle, but mainly we're talking about mama cows, beef cows that this is being fed to. But all the ProLix products are molasses-based with addition of protein and some vitamins and minerals to go along with it. Right.
So when we talk about protein, I know a lot of producers, when they hear urea, we refer to as non-protein nitrogen or whatever, MPN, the red flags come up, Todd, but really that's not of a concern with the ProLix brand because it's been my experience over all these years, it doesn't settle out, it stays in solution. Tell us a little bit about the MPN.
Right, yeah. I've been in this industry about 30 years now, and when I first started, there was a lot of negativity around feeding NPN, urea. Less so nowadays, and I think part of that is the safety that with products like ours, feeding it, there's really not that concern. Years ago, there was maybe some bad experiences, and part of it was that the liquids weren't fed correctly. It also could do with, there's probably more bagged fertilizer used back then, and so you were more likely to have a bag of urea laying around and cattle get into it, and you could have some issues. But it's all about getting the right amount to the cattle, and the safety issue, I feel very few, if any, calls about that.
Sure, and we're the same. We don't have any issues with that at all, and that's one of the reasons we like the ProLix brand because of the way that it is formulated.
And the other thing is we stand behind it. If you were to have issues, we're here to help you.
And I can certainly attest to that as well. All these years, ProLix has always stood behind the products, and that's why we've had such a great relationship with the brand and so much success with the brand. When we talk about our forages in our trade territory, the Southeast in particular, for the most part, our forages are limited and will not supply all that cow's daily requirement. In particular, this time of the year when it's colder and, a majority of our producers are calving. So that cow has such a increased requirement because of that as well. And so ProLix liquid is a great supplement to that forage. And when we do that, how does that, I guess, how do cows regulate themselves on ProLix?
Yeah, we try to design it where the cattle will eat what they need. And so this time of year, they're probably at their peak needs between weather conditions, needing more energy and protein for that, but also, like you said, production. Cows that are peak needs for both protein and energy right about calving on through until breeding season. And so a lot of producers are in that period of time. So a lot of times with our hay, they're at their lowest point as far as the amount of nutrition that's available through our hay. So you need to fill that gap in, and that's what we're designed to do. We get a lot of folks that are feeding the product now year round, and what we find out is that when the cattle need more, they eat more. When we get into say March, April, when the grass starts coming on, they back off the product and almost quit consuming it. But it's there if they need it.
And it's still, even though that grass is greening up, and even though they have something to graze, that grass, for the most part in our territory, still will not supply all the nutrients that cow needs. Right. From a daily requirement standpoint. And that's why we need to supplement with something, especially when it comes to vitamins and minerals and that type of thing. So when we think about liquid, how does a producer obtain his liquid from the co-op? How does he have to have a way to come and get it, or how does he do that?
One of the biggest advantages of feeding ProLix, and also from my standpoint, advantage of working with the co-ops, is that they offer delivery service. And so basically they'll feed your cattle for you. We work with them that most of them give an option if you want to come pick it up, but vast majority of it is delivered right out to your tank in your field. So they're the hardest part is, I always say, is writing the check for it, because you don't have to do any physical labor. And then pick up the phone, call the co-op, and your cattle are fed.
And that's a real advantage from a convenience standpoint, in particular, if you have a lot of cattle to see about, and being able to have that convenience and that, when it gets so cold, certainly we need to check on those cows, but worrying about them having something to supplement that hay during that time, that's really a good convenient way of doing things. And
absolutely, we just came off of some weather with negative temperatures. A lot of cases it's all you can do to get the hay out to them, much less having to worry about feeding and going to pick up feed. If you have that tank out there, it's out there 24/7 working for you.
Right. And so I guess one of the things I wanted to ask about, and I don't know, Todd, if this is available or not, so I'm asking a question that I don't really know myself. But, a lot of the cattlemen now, because of the great recommendations from our land-grant universities and federal programs that have been in place are geared up to graze rotationally. And so is there a convenient way to move that tank from field to field, or is it better just to have a tank in each location?
It depends on your situation. There's not a great way. They're easy to move empty. That's one good thing. With product in there, I've had producers either put them on oversized pallets and move them with forks from the tractor, or to build a sled, mainly a lot of times out of old barn lumber or something, build a little sled to pull them around. So you can do that, but there's not anything on the market as far as that's like I said, commercially available to do it.
Right. So really, the ideal thing is when that tank is empty and you move your cows, move the tank as well. But I guess that's a small thing when you're in the wintertime, because a lot of times, we try to keep those cows confined to one area when we're feeding hay, and we're not really worried about rotating, but as that grass comes back, and we're going to feed it all year.
And you bring up a good point that reminds me as far as about, you talk about consumption. the product and moving them around, we want to make sure when we're placing that tank out in the field to make sure it's in a location where cattle are going to it, not just a location where that it's convenient to the cattle, because they don't move a whole lot in the wintertime. If you'll watch your cattle, they spend most of their time around the hay on these cold, nasty days, and then they'll go for water, and then they'll go for a supplement and mineral. So a good rule of thumb is 100 yards away or better from water and hay. But you can also put your mineral feeder thereby. Yeah. We do recommend feeding a free choice mineral with it. Co-op's got some great minerals available, but they work hand in hand to regulate consumption. If all your protein and energy needs are met, they have a more consistent mineral consumption, and the other way around. They have a more consistent on our Prolix product by having their mineral needs.
And that's a consumption. You bring that up, Todd, and that's a misconception I think that a lot of our producers have. For instance, with a mineral, if we have a 4 ounce per day mineral, that's an average consumption over a period of time. That doesn't mean that each and every day every cow is going to eat exactly 4 ounces, but over a period of time it should average about that 4 ounce if the tag says 4 ounces. And so we know consumption is going to vary based on time of year, based on forage, but on average, what should producers look for in average consumption on liquid feed?
I've gotten to where I usually give 2 answers on that. The first answer is if you're only going to feed it in the wintertime, we probably average in that 2 to 2.5 pounds a day. And that's, hay feeding time is when I would consider, wintertime feeding. Whenever you start feeding hay, you more than likely you need a supplement out there with it. But if you were to keep it out there year round, on average, it's close to 1 pound a day. Whereas your wintertime feeding is about 2 to 2.5 pounds.
Right. So if you're going to feed it all year and you average across the whole period, which is what we need producers to look for and do when they look at consumption, it's over a period of time.
And the big reason that is, one, in the spring and summer, you're going to be having more available in the forage through grazing. But the other thing is the body condition. If you feed something year round, you keep them in a very steady body condition, and so they don't have to make up and try to put weight back on.
And so that's what we're after. We're not after weight gain necessarily. We certainly don't want them to drop off, especially if they're nursing a calf. The calf's going to pull them down a little bit, but consistent body condition is the goal.
We don't want to put that cow on a roller coaster. We don't want her weight to go up and down every year just based on what's available to her. You want to supplement what you've got available through your forages to keep them on that steady body condition year round. They're going to produce better, and they're going to be healthier by doing that.
That's right. And so when you talk about health, all these supplements aid, all your nutrition aids in the general health of the animal, processing the vaccines that we give and all of those things. If you're giving vaccines, for example, to a malnourished animal, they're not going to be able to process that vaccine and do those things that are necessary to protect that animal from disease. So keeping these cows in good shape, especially through the winter, is very important. So Todd, I'm going to bring this to a close, I guess, but is there anything else about liquid feed that we need to tell our audience that we haven't already told them? But certainly I think it's a good option for the majority of our producers. It's a great convenient option, especially for people that are working a full-time job like myself and farming and have several cows as well. You can make a phone call and go on to work and feed your cows at the same time. So it's a great option for that in particular. But as we end, let me ask one last question. Certainly the majority of liquid is fed. We're talking about, mama cows, but what about stocker operations? What about folks that are have some calves on feed? Does liquid have a place there, or are we really is there overkill at any time with liquid, or what do we?
There's a couple places it can fit into some stocker operations and also with calves. One with stocker operations, if you're using much forage, if you're grazing, it can fit in there. I've done it myself. With my job, I travel a lot. I couldn't feed every day. So having lick tanks out there, I knew they were getting fed every day, and then I could feed them every other day or every 3 days on a more of a traditional full type feed. The other thing, and a veterinarian that worked for us a while back shared this with me, and since it makes great sense. When you're weaning your calves, it's good to have a lick tank there if you've had your cows on it, because that's something that those calves were used to. You'll see them consume a little bit along. Very young age, you'll start coming up with their mother, licking a little bit, and having something out there that's familiar to them helps that transition to being weaned. They don't miss mama quite as much.
The stress factor goes down a little bit
Absolutely.
that way, and that's certainly, we'll be interested in that when we're weaning calves for sure. Well, Todd, I thank you for being our guest today. I thank you so much and appreciate the relationship we've had with the Prolix product. It's certainly been good for the co-op system, and I think it's been good for our producers to offer that product.
I see our relationship is a two-way street with the co-op. And one other thing that we didn't mention, we're the only liquid feed that's actually manufactured in the state. We manufacture just down the road at Shelbyville.
That's a great point. We are doing business at home and right in the middle of the state, and for the most of our territory, we can get product to them very quickly. So.
Yes.
Well, Todd, thank you so much. Appreciate you being here. And if you have any further questions, our audience, if you have any further questions about Prolix or liquid feed or any other feed products, see the folks at your local farmers co-op. Thanks for joining us this evening.